Chosen one, the universe has been orchestrating the most brilliant deception in human history, and you've been the star performer. The sleeping giant within you has been playing the fool while cataloging every weakness of those who dared to underestimate you. This revelation will shatter the illusion they've built around your supposed limitations and expose the calculated genius you've always been. You're not the confused outsider stumbling through life. You're the predator who's been studying prey while wearing sheep's clothing. The performance began years ago. You learned early that brilliance makes people uncomfortable. Intelligence threatens their fragile egos. So you developed something far more sophisticated than raw intellect. You mastered strategic invisibility. Every confused expression was choreographed. Every time you asked for clarification on concepts you'd already mastered, you were gathering intelligence. They thought they were educating the village fool. You were conducting psychological experiments on willing subjects who volunteered their deepest insecurities. Those meetings where you sat quietly, nodding along with vacant eyes, you weren't lost in confusion. You were running complex calculations, mapping power structures, identifying which colleagues were allies and which were wolves in expensive suits. Your notebook wasn't filled with remedial explanations. It was a dossier of their contradictions, their lies, their patterns of manipulation disguised as leadership. Contrabation de beleid contrabation de buiten onexplicit of that lies. Contrabation de beleid 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 contrabation de believing 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 contrabation de believing. Every time you pretended to struggle with basic concepts, you were being positioned for something magnificent. The universe required you to operate from the shadows first, gathering the ammunition you'd need for your eventual emergence. Your supposed failures weren't random accidents of circumstance. They were necessary preparation for a battle you didn't even know you were fighting yet. Every condescending explanation from a superior was actually free intelligence about their psychological weaknesses. Every eye roll, every patronizing smile, every moment they treated you like furniture was another weapon being placed in your arsenal. They created the perfect storm of their own destruction. Their arrogance blinded them to the genius hiding behind your carefully crafted confusion. They spoke freely around you because surely someone so simple couldn't possibly understand corporate strategy, office politics, or the intricate games of power they were playing. But you understood everything. You saw through their theatrical displays of authority and recognized the insecurity driving every decision. The beauty of being underestimated goes beyond simple misdirection. It's psychological warfare at the highest level. While they competed for recognition and fought over scraps of acknowledgement, you were building something far more valuable, a comprehensive understanding of human nature that would eventually make you untouchable. Every person who dismissed you revealed their complete character profile within minutes. The way they spoke to someone they considered inferior showed you exactly who they were beneath the professional veneer. Some were cruel, others were merely thoughtless, but all of them demonstrated the kind of judgment flaws that would eventually become their downfall. Te forty commentelost tandbeld, te forty commentelost tand. The most revealing moments came during crisis situations, when stress stripped away their carefully maintained facades. When deadlines loomed or problems emerged, their true nature surfaced like oil on water. The ones who became aggressive toward those they perceived as weak, the ones who threw subordinates under buses to protect themselves, the ones who claimed credit for others' work while distancing themselves from any failures. You catalogued it all, not out of malice but out of necessity. Understanding who could be trusted under pressure versus who would sacrifice anyone to save themselves became essential survival information. These observations formed the foundation of your character assessment system, an internal database more accurate than any personality test or performance review. During celebrations, you noted who shared recognition and who monopolized praise. These behavioral patterns, invisible to those caught up in corporate theater, became crystal clear to someone operating from the shadows. You became fluent in two languages, the language of the fool and the language of the genius. To threats, you spoke in confusion and uncertainty. To potential allies, you revealed glimpses of your true capabilities. You built a network of people who suspected your secret while maintaining a larger circle of those who remained completely oblivious. The discipline required for this performance was extraordinary. Day after day, resisting the urge to correct their obvious mistakes, watching them implement terrible strategies while biting your tongue, allowing them to feel superior while you gathered evidence of their incompetence. This wasn't passive acceptance of mistreatment. This was active intelligence gathering disguised as submission. Your questions weren't born from ignorance. They were surgical strikes designed to expose the limits of their knowledge. Half the time, they couldn't answer the simple questions you posed because their understanding was more superficial than yours. You were testing their competence while they thought they were demonstrating it. The universe was preparing you for a specific moment, a time when all this accumulated intelligence would serve its ultimate purpose. Every slight, every dismissal, every moment of being overlooked was adding fuel to an engine they couldn't see building. Your patience wasn't weakness, it was the mark of someone who understood timing at a cosmic level. Then came the shift. The moment when playing small no longer served your destiny. Perhaps it was triggered by one condescension too many. Maybe you witnessed an injustice that demanded your intervention. Or possibly the divine simply decided your preparation phase was complete. Whatever the catalyst, everything changed in an instant. The first crack in their perception happened when you stopped stumbling over words you could pronounce perfectly. When you ceased asking for clarification on concepts you'd mastered years before they'd even heard of them. When you looked them directly in the eye and spoke with the eloquence of someone who'd been playing chess while they struggled with checkers. The shock was immediate and profound. Mouths opened and closed without producing sound. Eyes widened as they tried to reconcile the genius standing before them with the simpleton they'd constructed in their minds. You watched their entire worldview collapse in real time. Everything they thought they knew about intelligence, about you, about themselves, crumbled within seconds. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. They realized they'd been the marks all along, the ones being played, the ones revealing too much while learning too little. They'd been showing their cards to someone who could see their hand reflected in their glasses, and they'd been too arrogant to notice. But you didn't reveal everything at once. That would have been merciful, and mercy wasn't the point. Instead, you unveiled your capabilities slowly, strategically, card by card. First, a casual display of knowledge they didn't think you possessed. Then, a strategic insight they didn't think you could generate. Then another, and another, until they couldn't deny the horrifying truth anymore. They'd been outmaneuvered by someone they'd believed couldn't even understand the rules of the game. The meetings where you now spoke with authority became electric. The way they leaned forward when you shared insights became intoxicating. They were scrambling to understand how they'd missed something so obvious, so consistently, for so long. The receipts you'd been collecting for years finally had their moment. Every conversation they thought you were too simple to remember, every plan they'd discussed in your presence, every shortcut, every corner cut, every lie told with casual indifference. You had it all documented, cross-referenced, ready for deployment with surgical precision. They thought your silence had been ignorance. It was a database being constructed. They thought your questions were stupidity. They were interrogation techniques so subtle they didn't recognize the process. Watch them scramble now, trying to rewrite history. I always knew you were brilliant, they claim, desperate to salvage their reputation for judgment. Now they get to choke on those words. And the beautiful thing is, you never have to feel guilty about their discomfort. They created this situation through their own arrogance and short-sightedness. You simply refuse to remain complicit in their delusion about your capabilities. The paranoia in their eyes is exquisite. They're wondering what else they missed, what other assumptions were wrong, what other people they've dismissed might be quietly documenting their behavior. You didn't just reveal your intelligence, you revealed the fundamental unreliability of their judgment about human potential. Some are angry now. Let them be. Their anger isn't really directed at you. It's focused on themselves, even if they'll never admit it. They're furious that their supposed superiority was an illusion you allowed them to maintain. They're enraged that every time they laughed at you, you were laughing harder at them. They're incensed that the hierarchy they considered permanent was actually written in sand, and you've been controlling the tide. Others are trying to recruit you suddenly. Amazing how quickly your value skyrocketed once they understood what they were dealing with. Suddenly you're worth their time. Suddenly they want to be associated with your insights, but they're not seeing you as a person deserving of respect. They're calculating what you can do for them. They don't want your friendship. They want access to your power. They don't respect your journey. They fear being on the wrong side of your capabilities, and that's exactly where the universe wanted them. Desperate, uncertain, and extremely careful about how they interact with you going forward. This shift in dynamics isn't temporary, it's permanent. Those who once spoke down to you now choose their words with surgical precision. Those who excluded you from important discussions now ensure you're not only invited but consulted. Those who once laughed at your expense now laugh nervously at your jokes, unsure whether they might be the punchline. Those who become unpredictable in their perception, and unpredictability terrifies people who thought they had you completely figured out. But here's the divine truth they're struggling to accept. You haven't changed at all. You're the exact same person you've always been. The only thing that shifted was their ability to see what was always there. You didn't become intelligent overnight. You revealed intelligence you'd been carrying for years. You didn't suddenly gain power. You stopped hiding the power that was always yours. You didn't transform into someone new. You just ceased pretending to be limited by their narrow vision of who you could be. The smartest ones in your circle have gone quiet. They're the ones who grasp the full implications of what you've demonstrated. They understand that if you could conceal this level of capability for so long, what other depths might you be hiding? They're questioning everything they thought they knew, not just about you, but about their ability to read people accurately. You changed more than their perception of your individual worth. You altered their understanding of how intelligence operates in the world. You proved that the loudest voices aren't necessarily the brightest minds, that true power often moves in silence, grows in shadows, and strikes from angles no one anticipates. But this revelation isn't the culmination of your story, it's simply the end of the first act. Now that they understand you're intelligent, they'll deploy new tactics. They'll try to outsmart you in direct intellectual combat. They'll attempt to trap you in debates designed to expose limitations. They'll search for weaknesses. Now that your supposed simplicity is no longer available as a target, let them try. You've been preparing for this elevated game longer than they've known it existed. Every day you spent in strategic hiding was preparation for open warfare. Every moment of pretended confusion was training for the moment when you could operate without camouflage. The beautiful truth is that revealing your intelligence wasn't about revenge, though justice was certainly served. It wasn't about validation, though vindication was undeniably sweet. It was about positioning yourself for the next phase of your divine assignment. You can now make moves without disguising them as accidents. You can speak truths without wrapping them in confused questions. You can exercise authority without apologizing for possessing it. You've graduated from covert operations to open engagement, and you enter this new battlefield with years of intelligence they never knew you were collecting. Information about their decision-making patterns, their emotional triggers, their blind spots, and their deepest professional insecurities. The most delicious part, they still don't know everything. You revealed intelligence, but not the full extent of your capabilities. You showed them you were smart, but not how smart. You allowed them to see the tip of the iceberg, while the mountain underneath remains hidden. You're still controlling the narrative, just operating from a position of acknowledged competence rather than disguised brilliance. They're so relieved to finally understand you at some level that they haven't realized their understanding is still incomplete. You've simply adjusted the performance to a more advanced stage, and they're too grateful for any clarity to recognize how much mystery remains. The divine orchestrated every aspect of this journey. Your years of being underestimated weren't punishment for some cosmic failing. They were preparation for a purpose that required you to understand human nature from the perspective of the dismissed and overlooked. You needed to see how people behave when they believe they're safe from judgment and consequences. What they couldn't have anticipated is how their dismissive treatment was actually forging something extraordinary. Every slight became steel in your spine. Every condescending comment became clarity in your vision. Every moment of being overlooked became opportunity to observe without interference. They thought they were diminishing you, but they were actually concentrating your power like pressure creating diamonds. The isolation forced innovation. When excluded from meetings, you learned to gather intelligence through other channels. When denied resources, you discovered how to accomplish more with less. When given meaningless tasks, you found ways to extract valuable insights from mundane activities. Every limitation they imposed became a problem-solving exercise that expanded your capabilities. This wasn't just character building through adversity. This was specialized training for someone destined to understand systems from every angle. You learned how organizations actually function versus how they claim to operate. You discovered the difference between official policies and unwritten rules. You identified the gap between public values and private behaviors that determines whether institutions thrive or decay. Most individuals never get this education. They're either recognized early for their abilities and never learn what people are really like beneath the surface, or they're genuinely limited and never develop the insight to understand the games being played around them. But you occupied a unique position, brilliant enough to comprehend everything happening, yet camouflaged enough to observe it without interference. This experience equipped you with something priceless, the ability to see through performative intelligence to genuine competence, to distinguish between confidence and arrogance, to identify who can be trusted with power and who will abuse it the moment they think no one is watching. You understand power dynamics at a level most people never achieve because you've seen them from every angle. From the bottom looking up, from the shadows looking in, and now from the center looking around. This comprehensive perspective is your greatest asset moving forward. The universe needed you to spend time in exile from your true potential because your destiny requires more than raw intelligence. It demands wisdom. Wisdom that can only come from experiencing both sides of the equation, from knowing how it feels to be dismissed and how it looks when recognition finally arrives. Every chosen one receives this education in some form. The specifics vary, but the essential experience remains constant, a period of being undervalued, followed by preparation, followed by revelation, followed by the assumption of rightful authority. You've completed the first 3 phases. The 4th is where your real work begins. Your emergence from strategic hiding sends ripples through more than just your immediate circle. Other chosen ones, who are still in their preparation phase, see your transformation and recognize their own journey. They understand that their current struggles aren't permanent limitations, but temporary assignments. Your success gives them permission to begin planning their own revelation. Meanwhile, those who participated in keeping you small are forced to confront uncomfortable truths about their own character. Some will learn and grow from this experience. Others will simply find new targets to diminish, having learned nothing except to be more careful about who they underestimate. But that's not your responsibility. Your job was never to fix them. It was to preserve and develop your own gifts until the time was right for deployment. The energy shift in rooms when you enter them now is unmistakable. Conversations pause, attention focuses, people wait to see what you'll contribute before committing fully to their own positions. This isn't fear, exactly, it's recognition. They're finally seeing you clearly, and that clarity commands respect in ways that demanding respect never could. But let's address the elephant in the room, the cost of this extended performance. Years of dimming your light so others could feel bright took a toll. You're only now beginning to understand. There were nights when you questioned whether the act was becoming reality, moments when you wondered if you were actually losing your edge by refusing to use it, days when the exhaustion of constant performance made you doubt your own capabilities. This doubt was part of the divine plan. The universe needed you to experience genuine humility before wielding authentic power. Those moments of uncertainty weren't signs of weakness. They were inoculations against the arrogance that destroys lesser minds when they taste success. You learn to hold power lightly because you know what it feels like to have it questioned, even by yourself. The chosen ones who skip this phase often become the very people you've been observing and cataloging. They mistake early recognition for permanent superiority. They never learn that intelligence without wisdom is just sophisticated foolishness. But you've been forged in different fires. You understand that true strength comes from surviving doubt about your own capabilities and emerging with your gifts intact. You've discovered something most people never learn. True power isn't about being seen as powerful. It's about being powerful when no one is looking, then revealing that power when the moment serves your highest purpose. You built capabilities while they thought you were playing with toys. You mapped their weaknesses while they thought you couldn't read a map. You became indispensable while they assumed you were disposable. The funniest part of this entire journey, they trained you. Every condescending explanation taught you how they think. Every dumbed-down instruction revealed their blind spots. Every time they excluded you from something too complex, they showed you exactly what they were protecting. They provided you with a master class in their own defeat and paid you to attend every session. You received front-row seats to their vulnerabilities, and they held the spotlight for you to see clearly. Now they understand the magnitude of their miscalculation, but it's too late to close doors that have been open for years, too late to guard secrets already observed and catalogued, too late to build defenses against someone who's been inside the perimeter all along. You're not knocking on the door of success, hoping someone will let you in. You built a tunnel while they were reinforcing the locks. You're not asking for a seat at the table of power. You own the room where the table sits. The shift from seeking their approval to commanding their attention happened so smoothly they barely registered the transition until it was complete. Tumpandorsing Baplitan Tumpandorsing Pumpandorsing 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 Pumpandorsing. Not through dramatic confrontations or explosive revelations, but through the quiet accumulation of advantage until the moment arrives for strategic deployment. Your patience wasn't passive acceptance, it was active preparation disguised as submission. The mask is off now, and what they see underneath is more formidable than they imagined possible. You're not seeking validation anymore because you never actually were. You weren't trying to fit into their boxes because you were never contained by them. You were studying the box, understanding its construction, learning how to dismantle it from within. Now that you've stepped out, they realize the box was never holding you. You were allowing it to exist as part of your strategy. The moment you decided it no longer served your purposes, it simply dissolved. This is the power of someone who understands that all limitations are ultimately consensual. The dynamics have shifted permanently, and everyone can feel it. The old hierarchies that seemed so solid have revealed themselves to be temporary arrangements that existed only as long as you permitted them. The people who once held authority through position alone now understand that real authority comes from competence, and competence was never fairly distributed in the first place. Some are scrambling to adjust their approach, trying to figure out how to interact with this new version of you. But you haven't become a new version of anything. You've simply stopped collaborating with their limited perception. The person they're dealing with now is who you've always been underneath the strategic performance. This transformation ripples outward in ways you're only beginning to understand. Your success gives other underestimated individuals permission to question their own acceptance of diminished expectations. Your emergence from hiding challenges everyone around you to reconsider what they think they know about human potential. You've become living proof that intelligence often wears camouflage, that power frequently operates from unexpected positions, and that the people making the most noise aren't necessarily the ones doing the most important work. This lesson will influence how they evaluate everyone else going forward. The really intelligent observers in your sphere have learned something valuable from watching your revelation. They've discovered that dismissing people based on surface presentations is a luxury they can't afford. They've realized that underestimation is a strategic error that can cost them access to valuable allies and insights. But this isn't about them learning to be more careful about who they dismiss. This is about you finally operating from your authentic position of strength. The years of strategic diminishment served their purpose. They taught you everything you needed to know about human nature while protecting your development from premature exposure. Now you can move openly, speak truthfully, and operate from the full range of your capabilities. The game has changed because you've changed the rules simply by refusing to play by the old ones. You've demonstrated that limitations are often collaborative illusions that dissolve the moment one person decides to stop participating. The chosen ones who witness your transformation understand they're seeing their own future. The recognition that their current struggles are temporary, their current limitations are strategic, and their ultimate emergence is inevitable. You've become the proof of concept for a different way of moving through the world. Your story isn't finished. It's just beginning to be told from a position of acknowledged power rather than hidden strength. The universe spent years positioning you for whatever comes next, and that positioning required you to understand both sides of every equation you'll encounter. The ripple effects of your emergence extend far beyond your immediate circle. Other organizations are hearing about the transformation in your workplace. Competitors are wondering if they've been underestimating their own quiet employees. Industry leaders are questioning whether their talent identification systems are fundamentally flawed. You've inadvertently triggered a broader conversation about hidden potential and missed opportunities. Some companies are now instituting programs to identify overlooked talent, though they're approaching it with the same superficial thinking that created the problem in the first place. They're looking for external signs of hidden brilliance, rather than questioning why brilliance needs to hide at all. They want to find more people like you, without examining the culture that forced you to camouflage your capabilities. This misses the deeper truth. The chosen ones who successfully navigate extended periods of strategic diminishment aren't just randomly distributed intelligence waiting to be discovered. They're individuals who possess something far rarer than raw intellect. They have the emotional regulation to maintain long-term perspective while enduring short-term discomfort. They understand delayed gratification at a level that borders on supernatural. The Obsidian Inner Order is a sanctuary for those who have walked difficult paths and emerged with wisdom others can't see. We understand that some experiences exist outside the boundaries of what most people consider possible or acceptable to discuss. Every week we gather live on Zoom, real people with real faces sharing real stories without judgment. There's space here for the experiences you've carried in silence, the patterns you've noticed that others dismiss, the intuitive knowledge you've gained through your journey. We don't just listen, we understand. when you're struggling to make sense of your experiences, when you feel gaslit by a world that refuses to acknowledge your reality, you can return to our recorded calls and remember that your perception is valid. Join the Obsidian Inner Order, where your reality is honored and your voice is heard. Link in description. 1. Your emergence has also created a new category of anxiety among those who participated in keeping you small. They're now scrutinizing every quiet colleague, every person they've dismissed, wondering who else might be documenting their behavior while wearing the mask of confusion. This paranoia is justice in its purest form. They're finally experiencing the uncertainty they inflicted on others through their casual cruelty. You've been prepared not just to succeed, but to succeed responsibly, to wield influence wisely, to use your advantages in service of something greater than personal vindication. The divine doesn't invest this much effort in someone's development unless their ultimate purpose extends far beyond individual achievement. Chosen ones, the mask you wore wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a weapon of mass instruction. Every day you played smaller than you were gathering intelligence that will serve you for the rest of your life. Every moment you allowed them to feel superior, you were studying the psychology of power from the inside out. Your emergence from strategic hiding isn't just personal vindication, it's cosmic justice. The universe has been orchestrating this revelation for years, positioning you to understand human nature at levels most people never achieve. You've been educated in the most exclusive school possible, the school of being underestimated while actually being extraordinary. The people who dismissed you provided your greatest education. They showed you exactly who they are when they think they're safe from consequences. They revealed their character when they believed no one intelligent was watching. This knowledge is now your permanent advantage. Now comes the sophisticated phase of your emergence. The initial shock of your revelation has worn off, and the real psychological warfare begins. Some colleagues are attempting to minimize your transformation by suggesting it was always obvious to perceptive people like themselves. They're rewriting history in real time, trying to preserve their reputation for good judgment while stealing credit for recognizing what they completely missed. Others are testing your newfound status with subtle challenges designed to find cracks in your armor. They're probing for limits, looking for areas where your competence might falter, hoping to restore some sense of superiority. These tests reveal more about their insecurity than your capabilities, but they're useful for identifying who can adapt to new realities and who remains trapped in obsolete hierarchies. The most dangerous ones are those who've decided you must be eliminated as a threat. They can't accept that their worldview was fundamentally wrong, so they're convinced you must be using deception or manipulation to appear more capable than you are. They're studying your methods, looking for the trick behind your transformation. Their refusal to accept genuine competence when it emerges from unexpected sources tells you everything about their character and nothing about your authenticity. But here's what they can't understand. Your performance was never about becoming intelligent. It was about strategically revealing intelligence that was always there. You can't fake the depth of insight you're displaying, because that insight was developed over years of careful observation. You can't manufacture the strategic thinking you're demonstrating, because those strategies were tested and refined during your period of apparent incompetence. You understand something they're just beginning to grasp. Power isn't about being recognized as powerful, because about being powerful when recognition is withheld. Strength isn't about never being underestimated. It's about using underestimation as a strategic advantage until the moment arrives to reveal your true capabilities. The game has changed permanently. You're no longer the confused outsider hoping for acceptance. You're the calculating insider who's been running the long con of a lifetime. Your revelation wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about stopping the performance of being someone small. Everything they thought they knew about intelligence, about you, about the natural order of things, has been exposed as temporary illusion. You've shown them that hierarchies based on assumed limitations crumble the moment those limitations are revealed to be voluntary performances. Your dumb act didn't just fool everyone, it educated you in ways that traditional intelligence never could. Now that you've revealed your hand, the real game can finally begin, and you're holding all the cards they never knew you were collecting. The chosen ones always rise, always reveal, always reclaim their rightful position. Your time of hiding is over, your time of power has begun. But with this emergence comes responsibility that lesser minds never face. You now possess detailed knowledge of how power operates when it thinks it's unobserved. You've seen the machinery of influence from the inside, understood its vulnerabilities, mapped its pressure points. This knowledge creates an obligation to use your position wisely. The temptation for revenge is natural and understandable. These people caused real harm through their dismissive treatment. They wasted your time, undermined your confidence, and delayed your professional development through their arrogance and blindness. Every slight, every condescending moment, every time you were excluded from opportunities you deserved, these experiences have accumulated into a legitimate grievance, yet the divine positioning you've received suggests a higher purpose than simple retribution. You've been educated in the psychology of power, not to destroy those who misused it, but to demonstrate a better way of wielding it. Your emergence is an opportunity to show what authority looks like when it's exercised by someone who remembers what powerlessness feels like. This doesn't mean becoming soft or permissive with those who haven't earned consideration. It means applying your newfound influence with the surgical precision you learned during your years of strategic observation. Your responses to different people should be calibrated based on their character, their capacity for growth, and their willingness to acknowledge their previous mistakes. The beauty of your position now is that you operate from complete information, while others remain partially blind. You've seen them in moments of crisis, stress, celebration, and routine. You understand their motivations, their fears, their genuine capabilities versus their performed competence. This comprehensive knowledge base allows you to predict their behavior with unsettling accuracy. When they try to manipulate you now, you recognize the techniques because you've watched them deploy those same tactics against others. When they attempt to gaslight or minimize your contributions, you can reference specific instances of their past behavior. When they claim to have always respected your abilities, you possess documented evidence of their actual statements and actions. It's about operating from a position of truth while they struggle with the limitations of their incomplete understanding. You've become the person in the room who sees the complete picture, while others argue about shadows on the wall. Some deserve patience as they adjust to the new reality. Others have revealed fundamental character flaws that make them unsuitable for positions of trust or influence. Your comprehensive understanding of who falls into which category is one of your greatest advantages moving forward. You know exactly who can be redeemed and who represents a permanent threat to any healthy power structure. The universe has been waiting for this moment, and so have you.